All right, we are live.
Grizz win. Ooh, ooh,
That's
ooh, ooh.
right. That's right.
God.
Grizz Nation. This is Fight on Montana. We are celebrating a Grizz win.
Yep. Yes, we are.
Man,
We need to do beer from now on, dude.
I know we need a beer sponsor.
We need a beer
That's what
sponsor.
we need. What's your favorite like local brewery?
I don't know, dude, but you know what? Um, uh, there's another podcast that's in the state of Montana,
Yeah.
and every time they record a podcast at the Grizz Fan podcast,
Uh huh.
they always record and they're always sipping some type of beer. I think it's such a cool thing because they get together and they're like in the backyard
Oh
or
yeah.
something like that, and
Yeah,
they're always
definitely,
just
man.
sipping something, man. So. Yeah, I think it's kind of a little cool idea, man. Maybe we don't have to go beer. Maybe if you just do something like I'm a big fan. I'm trying to stay away from beer right now. Lord knows I need to be. But even if we just had a little sip of something, man, like right
Yeah.
now, tequila, man, that is my thing. I love
See,
tequila.
See, and so I've heard I've just had the regular tequila. I haven't had Mexican tequila because I've heard that is like smooth tasting,
Oh,
right?
it's a different taste. So I
Okay.
was obviously me being Mexican.
Yeah.
Obviously, growing up, we have all your standard traditional tequilas that are in the actual states.
Yep.
But then one summer, with a couple of the football players, we decided on a spring break to hit Mexico, man. And we were all I think we had just turned over 21 or something like that.
Okay.
And we are like, you know what? We haven't really done a trip together. Let's get together with some of the boys, some of my boys from down in California, and we made a trip out there, man. And let me tell you, man, they put something in tequila. It's just different over there.
That's
It's
crazy.
different. You got to be careful. But
Yeah,
oh
I've heard
man,
that. I've heard that goes
there's
down
not,
real smooth, and then you're like,
dude.
oh my gosh.
There's nothing better than just
Huh.
some tequila on the walk on the rocks. Maybe a splash of
Yep.
lime if you want to get a little creative there. That's my thing these days, man. That's what
Man,
I'm really enjoying. So that's what we need to do.
we
Because I'm
do. We
trying to
do.
stay. I mean, I'd love to do the beer, but I'm trying to stay away from it because the body ain't looking too well, man.
Hey, we can
The
do.
sun,
We can get you a seltzer, and I'll have the beer, man.
the seltzer and the beer. That's fair enough, man. That's fair enough. That's fair enough. Yeah. But yeah, big win, big year. I mean,
Oh
we're
man.
super excited for it, man. But before we get into that, we got a couple Grizz updates that Adam's going to share with you guys.
Exactly. So, Grizz update, y'all. Soccer on a tread, man. This weekend, 6-0 against MSUB, and then 3-0 against Cal State Bakersfield. A win in both of those. They have a really good this week coming up. They play Colorado State this Thursday at Colorado
Hmm.
State, and then they play Fresno State in Missoula at noon on Sunday. So if you got nothing to do on Sunday, man, make a trip out of it. Go watch the South Dakota game, and then on Sunday stay the night and go watch some Fresno State and Montana Sunday morning at noon.
Yeah, no, that'll be pretty interesting, pretty fun, you know.
Yeah,
Because so how does it work? How does it work with that? I mean, are there levels to that? I mean, excuse the ignorance for all the fans
yeah.
listening out there that are avid fans. Are there different like obviously with football, obviously
Hmm.
D3 or JC D3, D3 D2, obviously D1 AA, and then you get to
Yeah.
D1 the top tier kind of football. Do they have those same kind of tiers?
They not as much, and I could totally be wrong. So if I'm wrong out there, people that know soccer way better than me, let us know on our Twitter feed
Yeah.
at Fight on Montana. But I could totally be wrong. I think that um, Big Sky they play in Division One, so
Okay.
that's why you're seeing them
So just
play.
all D1.
Yeah, so you probably have D2 and D3, but you don't have like D1 and then the FCS. It's just D1 as well, and then Division Two, Division Three. You don't have that.
Okay.
So if you're
I was
Division
just
One,
curious
you're
about
division.
it.
Yeah, if you Division One, you're playing, the likes of Washington State and
I mean, shout
Wyoming.
out to them. I mean, what a good
Yeah,
start to the season, or I guess the
exactly.
preseason right now. You know what I mean? Oh,
Yeah. Well, and it's their non-conference, so it's just getting them ready for the Big Sky, and
yeah.
yeah, I can't wait to watch some soccer, man. I love watching this team play, and those
Well, you know
coaches
what?
are just
Now that
amazing.
now that we're so much more invested with the coaches and use the
Yeah,
program a little bit more,
yeah,
it's actually something that I'm pretty excited about.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yep.
when I used to wrestle in high school, I had this lady that would come to all my tournaments and stuff like that, and she used to be one of the teachers, and she was just like, I understand nothing about wrestling, absolutely nothing. But by the end of a year or two, she was just like really invested in the sport, and I feel like I'm finally hitting that peak interest in soccer, obviously, to be able to be like, hey man, I look forward to hearing about the games. I look forward to going to watch them play too.
Yep.
Even
Yep.
obviously still don't understand it enough, but we're on the right path, I think.
I need to. We need to say this to Chris. This is just my. You know how like football has the QB club.
Yeah,
Soccer should have the keepers club.
the Keepers Club, that'd be pretty dope.
Yeah, and they should, do
Yeah.
kind of do what the football team's doing, and change it up. I have a couple ideas. We need to get a hold of him and say, hey, Chris, we got some ideas.
Yeah,
So,
let's do it. Let's put it together. Let's put it together.
all right, guys, let's go move on because we've got some more updates. Volleyball had a jam-packed weekend. They were in
Yeah.
Indy. They had 3 games, 3 matches. The first one they were 0-3 against Drake, so they lost there, but they finished strong that weekend. They played St. Francis with a sweep, 3 matches to 0, a win there, and then 3 matches to 0 against IUPUI. They have some games this weekend against Prairie View and UT Rio Grande Valley. It's a Texas tournament that they are doing September 9th and 10th, which is kind of weird because they have their home tournament and then they go to a tournament and they go to another tournament and then I think they have one more tournament until they start their Big Sky conference schedule.
Hmm.
So it's just kind of different how each you know sport works and how they do their non-conference schedules. So
Oh yeah, and like when we said with Coach Allison, I mean, she's expecting a huge year for them. So
yeah.
I mean, keep on the lookout, guys. Keep on the lookout. I think it's going to be a good season, and I'm really looking forward to it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, and also cross country, they had a match, a meet, as we would say. Beatrix, I'm going to say her name wrong, Frisell. She placed 7 out of 25 runners, and then Nathan Carter was the men, 10 out of 25. Finished second. I think it was just kind of like there wasn't very many teams. I know the Cats were first, and then I think Carroll was there too, and they were third. So I didn't know if there was 3 teams there or if there was more. It really didn't say. And then I just took the leading of the men and the leading of the women.
Hmm.
And so shout out to them. And yeah, that's all Grizz updates that we have for you.
Let's go. Nice and easy start to the season. I'm sure there'll be more as the year kind of rolls along.
Exactly. So Angel, we had some football, and boy, did we have some football, buddy.
Yeah, oh yeah. Well, we had some football, and boy, did we have some football. Good. Yes, we did. Yeah, we did, man. And so I think we gave our predictions for last week. I
Yeah.
ended up being 49-14. I got
Yep.
punched in the mouth, obviously, with their defense, obviously giving up nil, nothing. And I
Nothing.
think what was your prediction, Adam?
56-7.
Yeah, so we have a little bet going on, but technically speaking, Adam was 2 off from the scoring. I was 2 off from the defensive side of things as far as points go. So because of that, we're calling it a tie for this week. We have a
Yep.
long season football to go. But man, how exciting was it? I
Oh man.
unfortunately, don't kill me by saying this, I had to go to Bozeman for a work trip. So I was in enemy territory, but I promise you guys, I was repping the hat, I was repping the gear, and I got a couple FUs, but I got a couple high fives. So it ended
That's
up being
awesome.
okay. It ended up
Uh,
being okay, dude. Yeah, I mean, but did you have a chance to watch it game day? I had to rewatch it afterwards. I was
yeah.
keeping up with Grizz updates, obviously through Twitter, through
Yep.
Instagram, those sort of things, social media. And then I took some time on Sunday, kind of throughout the day, just being able to kind of catch up on the game. And man, I mean, what a good first game. What a good
Oh
start to the
man.
season. I mean, obviously, number one thing that sticks out to me, and I was thinking the whole time I was rewatching, because I already knew what happened, but I was just like, nobody got injured,
Oh, it
which
wasn't
is
that
my
awesome.
big thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
nobody got injured. I think there
Yeah.
was a couple guys on the Northwestern team that got a little banged up.
Yep.
I mean, prayers up to them. I hope it's nothing serious, career ending or season ending.
Yeah.
But it looks like everybody got out of the game relatively healthy for the most part.
Well, yeah, like Wellnell got a little banged up, and then Fouch got banged up, but they both ran off the field, and then they
Yeah,
both came back to play other downs. So,
yeah.
yeah, I didn't get to watch it live as I was in the hot springs of Wyoming and playing with my kids in the hot waters on a hot day. But I got to rewatch it, and it's not the same knowing that your team won, dude. It really isn't.
There's an excitement to it. Yeah,
There's I feel like, okay, I know what's going to happen, and I obviously I knew, the score and how we scored, because I was totally making sure that I was updating on Twitter like you were. But yeah, it was good to have some offense. Man, that offense surprised us with Lucas Johnson having a day.
yeah, man. I
But
mean, what a stud. I mean,
yeah.
an absolute stud. Just being able to watch him. Um, again, just really, I think for where the offensive line is,
Hmm.
to what they need in a quarterback and vice versa, I think it's that perfect fit. Obviously,
Yeah.
it's too early to kind of really say anything or really kind of make any
Yeah.
type of predictions. But man, that guy has phenomenal pocket presence. You
Yeah.
know, I think again, just I was really fortunate. Obviously last year we played with Cam and I played with Dalton Sneed, and in those years, where offensive line wasn't at the top tier of its play. I think
Hmm.
he did a really good job of just being aware of the pocket presence, knowing where he had to be, kind of keep his eyes focused, and just filling out the pocket. And I think Lucas is on that same kind of tier as far as players go. Being elusive, and the dude can run.
Oh man, dude. Well,
Oh
and
my goodness.
let's kind of start, like we said. Let's start with the offense and what we saw, man.
Yeah, yeah, 100%.
Like we said, Lucas Johnson evading the defense, and he showed that he wasn't afraid to just run and take
Yeah,
some hits, but also, man, he's got an arm. And what I was really happy about is when he threw the ball, he threw it to where only the wide receiver could get it. So either his guy was going to catch it or no one else was. And
hmm,
so, that's really important with, not turning over the ball. Some of his passes were beauties.
yeah.
And so that was kind of what I was kind of excited for. And he didn't seem nervous, man.
I
Your
mean, I
first
think I
game,
think I think that just comes from experience, man. When
man.
you think about his journey, you think about how long he's been really playing football. The dude's
True.
an old guy when you look
Yeah,
at the,
true.
the age gap of how old football players kind of go. I mean,
Yeah.
he has what, 7 seasons under his belt right now? 6 seasons, 7 seasons?
Yeah, 6 or 7. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think
So I mean,
he spent three in Georgia Tech, and then I think he spent 2 at South Dakota State, and then 1 here, so that's 6.
okay, 6 and 6, but still,
Yeah.
man, that's a lot of football to be played.
Yeah.
That really is a lot of football to be played, and that was one thing that I wasn't worried about. He had been in some big time games. I've seen his highlights all over YouTube. When he was at San Diego State. Just the type of athlete that he was. The dude's a competitor, and I
Yeah.
think he really kind of fits in well with the rest of the team. I think
Yeah.
the team trusts him, and vice versa. He trusts the team. You know, he
Yep.
looks comfortable back there. He looks like, hey, you know what? This is another game. I have a job to do. And again, he just played it really, really well. I mean, even some of the passes that he was making,
Oh yeah.
obviously still, I know that there's more. I'm sure that there's film to be worked on. I'm sure that he's sitting there being like, okay, I got to be better for next week. Got to be better for next week, because that's just what an athlete does. That's what an
Yep.
athlete is. But just being able to see him and some of the balls that he made, because they were risky throws, some of them, you know.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
it's that complete faith in receiver that, I mean, even that touchdown with Mitch Roberts in the end zone, where he did a little, a little comeback into the end zone, and the defender was like stomping, throwing his arms up, all this type of stuff.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That was a tight ball, you
Yeah.
know. That was right to the chest, and that was all Mr. Reliable, just being able to say, "Hey, I trust you. You trust me. I'll get the ball to you. It's your job to just finish it off and catch it."
Well, and
And
that
I think
Flowers catch, that's the catch that was like, I was like, holy cow.
exactly,
When he threw that,
exactly,
Flowers just like right there, I was like,
yeah.
whoa.
Yeah, just dimes, man, just dimes.
Yeah.
And ultimately, again, it's too early to tell, but I'm a big, Lucas fan right now. I think we saw some really, really good things, and some of those guys on the Northwestern team, extremely athletic guys.
Oh
You
yeah.
know,
Yep.
yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. Yeah, I mean they've had some tough goings with with their coaching changes and getting adjusted into a program and trying to build it back up. But some of those guys were big. Some of
Yeah.
the guys were big, super athletic, and he was able to play that to his advantage and make it work.
Well, and they were going into it with an experienced DBs as well. They
Yeah.
had two of their DBs were preseason Southland, I think second team. So these were not scrubs that they were these
Yeah,
wide
by any
receivers
means.
were going against.
Yeah, by any means.
So
Yeah. And he
one thing
just
that
picked them apart. Yeah. I mean,
oh
what
yeah,
did he end off? What did he end off the game with? I think it was 10 yards, 208 yards or something like that.
I want to say
208
214
yards.
or something 200, 214,
Yeah.
2
Yeah.
something like
Just
that. Yeah.
just over 200 yards, 4 touchdowns is a pretty damn good day.
Yeah. Well, and
Yeah.
I think he ran for 70. So
Yeah. A little bit over 72. I think he was
yeah,
the leading rusher.
yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, great performance from his end. So I got nothing but good things to say. But again, it's game one. He knows it's just game one. It's really hard to win football games, and the fact that he did it that way, it was a great introduction just to what Montana football is, and just gave me, some really some big things to be excited for the rest of the year.
Exactly. Well, and like you said, there was no injuries, that they played some of the twos and the threes. At one time they had the whole offensive line changed as well, where they had all the ones out and they had everybody else in. So that was good to have some rotation there. I'm sure
Oh
that
yeah,
I'm sure it was
yeah.
so hot that they had to do that, but it gives more experience that way as well. So
Well, you know what? Those. I mean, it could be 100 degrees, it could be 0 degrees, but if it's not convincing enough, they know not to put those players in. That's how Coach Shermer was. He says,
yeah,
I don't care if we're up by, 77 points. If I feel like you guys aren't being productive as a unit, I'll keep you guys in there. And the only reason I know that is because when I was a young guy and we were being as productive, even if the scoreboard reflected differently,
hmm
he'd keep me in there. And so I'm sure it was the same situation with those guys. You only get those rotations out of there, especially being, three guys that are really experienced, that have come from bigger time schools, Nebraska,
yeah,
Washington State.
yeah,
I think it was Washington State and another Nebraska transfer.
yeah,
And then those two guys on the left side or the right side of the ball, you
yeah.
know, keeping those guys in, is a huge, huge thing simply because they need the experience. But if they do a good job collectively as a unit, I could totally see them kind of getting out. And so it was nice to get some of those younger guys, some of those twos and those threes into that rotation just for experience, because that's going to be so advantageous, as the years come along. And it sounds like that's kind of the ploy. It's the long game for these guys.
Exactly. Well, and one thing that I thought was kind of cool right off the bat, man, they had Grossman lined up as a fullback at
I
one
saw that.
point. They had him
I
as a
think that was,
wide receiver. They had him, in his regular spot at tight end on the
I mean, that's how they
line.
started off the game. Cole as a
Yeah.
fullback, single back,
Yep.
coming. It was just a straight up the middle type of play. And I mean, it's a run play. It's just to establish that type of dominance. And I
Yep.
think that's what I appreciate most out of Bobby. He
Well,
comes and he says, "Hey, you know what? We're not going to do anything fancy. We're going to
yeah.
just straight run it up the middle to let you know what kind of game it's going to be."
Well,
And
and
I mean,
they had
go ahead.
they had a double back as well, and double running back, and then I think that didn't they have a triple running back
Yeah, yeah. They
with
had a
him
three
as
back at
well.
one point. They had a three back at
So
one point. Yeah,
I think that just shows, okay, so you think we're just going to have a quarterback and running back there. We're going to change it up. We're going to have a lot. I think it was a lot faster pace than we were last year, just because we could open up the playbook a little bit more. But the pace was a bit better, and it was just nice to see some different things from the
yeah.
offense.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, let's even break down the quarters, man. I think we scored 13 first quarter, 13 the second quarter, and then we ended up with 7 the third and 14 the last.
Yep.
And it could have very well been worse than what it was. I think we
Oh
we
yeah.
missed we missed a field goal, a couple extra points would obviously could have added to the total score. I
Yep.
mean, but just the offensive side of things, I think we did a really good job.
Yeah.
I think we got lucky with not necessarily lucky, but we just dominated on special teams to really give us that advantage to be in
Yeah.
position to be like, hey, the field's a lot shorter right now. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, and you bring up a good point because special teams were amazing. Patrick Rohrback, what a leg, man! What a leg.
Yeah,
Punting,
I was super excited for him being able to
yeah.
see. Because I mean, think about it, man. I mean, going really just kind of being like, this is the dream. This is,
Mm-hmm.
this
Yep.
is what I've always wanted. This
Yep.
is what I've always worked for. I've been to camps. I've trained under some really, really kind of, really experienced people that have had a presence in this game, being able to learn from those guys, and then coming to 30,000 fans, 20, what was it? I think 25,000 fans, almost damn near. I think
Yeah,
that was our attendance.
24,100, I believe.
Yeah, something like
Was,
that. So
yeah.
just right under 25,000 people running
Yep.
at the tunnel. I mean, the pressure's all on you,
Oh
you
yeah.
know, because when you think about it, all those other guys have played special teams, for a couple of years already. So he has experience all around him. He's the new guy,
Yep.
but he's the guy that needs to make it count on those types of plays and those situations and those, those special teams. And so I think I think he did pretty good.
Well, and
Obviously, just like
he had
anything
2
else.
punts in the under the 20. As a
Yeah,
as a freshman on his first game, you wouldn't think that would have happened, and they were good punts. I think he averaged about 43 to maybe 45, 43, 45, which is a good punting average.
yeah,
So yeah, and I believe he kicked off as well a couple times, I believe,
yeah,
if I'm not
yeah.
mistaken.
And it's just about getting comfort,
Yeah,
I mean, from the looks of things, he has that talent. He has the capability of doing the things that can really change the game because everybody always thinks it's offense and defense. No, special teams is probably the most important thing. And if Bobby's good at anything, it's special teams.
yeah,
Mm,
yep,
and so that's something that I'm confident that even the small little things that he might need to get better at, I mean, they'll be dialed in as the season kind of progresses. And obviously, just being around those types of guys, it's just going to build his confidence up to let them know, hey, we got you, we trust you, but we expect good things out of you, and you
yeah.
should expect that from us too. We'll take care of you, but you got to take care of us as well.
Exactly. Well, also special teams, man. We were constantly getting in on the punter, constantly.
You saw that
Uh,
pressure? Oh
oh my
my
gosh,
God.
man. We'd got one blocked field or the blocked punt, field goal.
Block punt.
Wow,
Yeah.
gosh. Blocked punt, and then we ran it back for a touchdown, which was awesome.
Yeah.
We had two missed field. I believe we had two missed field goals, if I'm not
Yep.
mistaken. One might have been a PAT, but man, and they kicked away from Bergen a lot. He was dynamic as well on special teams. I'm still waiting for Flowers to run one back. But man, if you have Flowers and Bergen back there, I don't think any of the teams are going to be punting to us at all.
No, no. I mean, it's just a scary thing because either way,
Yeah.
regardless of where you put it, I mean, you're in a potential danger zone as
Yep.
an opposing coach to be like, hey, these guys very well might score on us over
Yep.
and over again. So they got to be extremely careful to who they throw to because those guys can block their ass off. And they're mean
Exactly.
too. If you saw some of the plays, I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
they weren't backing down. I never pointed at a time that I ever see one of our guys back down from one of those guys. You
Yep.
know, they're in their face. Obviously, they kept it all in the realm of legal limits, but it was a good day.
Yeah.
We how many did we even have any penalties on our side?
We
I
did,
mean,
and let me
we
check.
had yeah. I mean,
I
maybe
know
I just kind of
Justin got
glanced
one for,
over it.
for a personal foul. I know he was lippy against a couple of them, so I think didn't he get a personal foul for chirping at somebody,
Oh, I might have missed that.
and then got
I
a
might have just
pass interference as well. So
okay.
I know we had some of the some penalties, but not much as Northwestern State. Northwestern State killed themselves.
They had no
Um,
composure, man. I mean, that's
oh
the tough
man,
part. I mean, everybody can be the big dog when they're up, but when they're
yeah,
down, that's when you really start to see the character of what some of those guys are. I'm not saying that they're bad
yeah,
guys, but it
no,
definitely
no,
challenges you. It takes you to a place because you're so passionate about the game, and sometimes it shows on the field, and sometimes
yep.
it's just not the right time to show that type of passion.
I'm trying to. Here we go. Um, their total offense penalties. They had the Northwestern State had 10 for 110 yards. We
That's a
had
lot,
six.
yeah.
We had 6 for 55.
Uh huh. And
So
I know some of them were like false starts and stuff like that. So, but in the
yeah,
grand scheme of things, I mean, compared to I think what we have seen in the past, I mean, just the first game, a lot more disciplined team. You can tell.
yeah, way more disciplined. One at the first game, like that was a first game to have because that was pretty easy going. I know that the offense did really well. They came out firing. Special teams never missed. Man, defense.
Hmm.
You,
Well, before
if
we
you
go
were
into
in a
that,
yes,
let's talk about the offensive line a little bit. I've been
yes, because
thinking
we
about
need
it
to
all
go over the
day.
offensive line because I have some questions for you because offensive line we need to go into that before we special teams, but I got a question for you. So was this a good performance
You know
or
what I think?
was this
Go ahead.
because what I look at is Lucas Johnson, right? His capabilities open up the field. He's able to move and get away from pressure and make and create, right? So
Hmm.
a couple of those runs, they weren't really runs that were planned. They were, hey, runs where I need to avoid pressure. So was this a good performance or was this a bad performance? And it was Lucas was able to make it a good performance because he was able to move with his legs.
Well, here's what I tell you. I mean, obviously, it goes back to what we're talking about Lucas. I think his pocket presence is top tier. You know, as good
Yeah,
as I've seen it in a long time. So because of that, I think he did a really good job when the pressure was might have been a little bit too much, where it could have potentially been, a sack for loss,
yeah,
a tackle for loss in the backfield. I think he made the most of those situations and being able to kind of scramble out of it. If I'm talking about just offensive line play, I will say this. I will say this. It was a lot better than what I thought it could have been. Not saying what
yeah,
it was going to be, but what it could have been. It was a lot better than I thought. I think those two young guys did an amazing job, given them circumstances, being so young and so fresh, and be able to kind of get into their rotation. So I was
hmm,
thoroughly surprised. McGinnis, obviously, he's a dog. AJ Fort's
yeah,
a dog. Walker did an awesome job too. I didn't see too much out of him that I was, necessarily concerned. But you can definitely tell that, hey, this is a football team and an offensive line that really prides himself in that position. You know what I
yeah,
mean? And so because of that, when you see that as a whole, it just gives you optimism that as the season progresses, the expectation is going to be better. And knowing Germer like I know Germer, knowing Bobby like I know Bobby, that heat is going to be on them in order to be better every single day, game in and game out. And so again, I will say it was a lot better than what I thought it could have been, but I
hmm,
do know that there's a lot more that they need to be better at, and not
yeah,
to say that they won't be able to win games for it, but I just believe that they can establish themselves as a really dominant offensive line. And at the
yeah,
end of the year, we're going to be looking back at the first preview and say, hey, you know what? They punched us in the mouth. We said that might be the question of the team. That is no longer the case, and we should have never doubted them in the first place. You know what I mean? And that's the type
exactly.
of levels that I think they can get to.
Well, it was just interesting if you saw the press conference. I think it was Monday. AJ Forbes, they had AJ Forbes on, and he just said, it was a good performance, but it's not with what they really wanted. They've got to get better on communication and as a
Yeah,
unit.
yeah,
And so I think with those two guys, AJ and Hunter, like I really feel like they are true leaders in that realm, and I feel like with them they can kind of lead these young group. And I would even say Walker's kind of a young guy in that area because he hasn't played
yeah.
offensive
I mean,
line
he
for
was
a
he
while.
was a defensive lineman at Nebraska. You know,
Exactly. So
and again, I'm going back to what I said. It's not necessarily the physical capacity of what they are. At the end of the
yeah,
day, to be a top tier athlete or just a football player, it's all mental. It's all in the
yeah,
brain. And exactly what goes back to what you just said about AJ. It was
yeah,
a good performance. I was impressed with it because
yeah,
of. I mean, it could have been south with some of those young guys. You just don't
yeah,
know. There's some things at the game you have to experience in order to be better for it and from it.
hmm,
I think everybody can agree with that. But I do think, the level, I mean, the ceiling is not even tapped yet. You know what I mean?
yeah,
There's so much more that they can be as a unit to put them even better position, especially late in the year. Those young guys are going to want that experience, and so it's better now. And I'm not to say that you want mistakes, but it's better now to hash them out now. So when those the games that really matter in December, or the games that are remembered in December, that's when they can really kind of pull away and be like, we're comfortable with this. We
yeah,
figured out our communication. We're dialed in. We're all on the same page. Because all it is just listening to the guy next to you and being able to kind of commute that to the guy to the right of you or to the left of you, you know?
yeah. Well, and I think that that question's not going anywhere, and I think they're gonna get pissed off having to answer it too, with when the
Hmm.
season goes along. So I think they're gonna be continuing to work on that craft, continue on the communication. I don't think they're gonna get any with injury. Hopefully not. I think they're just going to continue to get better just with the growth that they're going to make
Yeah.
with the young guys. And so I see them getting better. I don't see them getting worse.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so hopefully, Lucas can kind of do what he's doing right now, and that
Yeah.
line can kind of grow. They're going to have, this is probably going to be this upcoming game this week is probably going to be their toughest game until they have to go to Sac State. So they're going to have some games where they can kind of work on it and kind of, get things better and the communication better and under wraps.
Yeah, they're gonna definitely have to dial it in. Like you said, I agree with you. I think this will be their tougher. I don't think, and I say this just because I believe in us so much. I don't think it'll be a tough opponent by
Yeah.
any means, but again, I think it'll be their tougher match. South Dakota, we played them back in 2019, and by no means were they the toughest of opponents that we had played, but it
Hmm.
definitely was, you had to be a little bit more on your game that week,
Yeah.
you know. And that's not to say that you don't shoot for it to be the top tier of mental capacity for every single game, but
Yeah.
you definitely had to be a little bit more careful. Small mistakes will bite you. Where are your eyes? Who's your point? You got a double team on the front side from the tackle to the backer, but are you keeping your eyes on him, but also keeping like a third eye on the defensive end just in case you can help out your tackle?
Hmm.
That's when you really start to elevate it to the next level. Are they slanting in? Are they doing cross plays up the middle? Those sort of things. And so again, I'm optimistic for these next couple of weeks simply because it'll really start to dial them in, and they need these games.
Oh, they do. They definitely do. So, we were talking about defense.
Let's go to defense, baby. What a
Defense.
performance!
Oh my gosh, dude. If you were an opposing quarterback, would you be scared?
No, I mean 100%. And you saw
Oh my
that.
gosh.
You saw that. You saw that
Oh,
from the quarterback.
oh yeah.
He knew that, and he was, athletic enough to probably makes a couple guys miss. He made some of our guys miss, right off the bat. But we're
Yeah.
so aggressive, we're so
Oh no.
dominating in our pursuit that we just overwhelmed them. If one guy missed, there was another guy biting at the ankles.
Yep.
If that second guy missed, the third guy was getting him for sure. And you
Oh
saw
yeah.
a couple of plays of that. Even if he did get the ball off, there
Yep.
was such pressure from the secondary that it was hard for them to do anything. The couple times that they did have good pass pro, I mean, it was hard for him to do anything. He was back there forever because he couldn't figure out who the hell was open. So it
Yeah.
just goes to testament. But they absolutely derailed these guys, man. That was
Yeah.
a dominating performance. And I think that's what you're going to expect for the rest of the year.
Well, just one thing that like jumped out at me is how fast. Like you would think, hey, we lose Jace Lewis, lose Gavin Robertson. You would think, hey, we might, take a step back. And respect to those guys, I don't think we took a step back.
No, they were
We're
fast.
tremendously fast. Connell has an interception. But all those guys, from Deary Todd to Jacob McGorn to Gubner and Alford, those guys, that was really impressive. The front three got pressure on the quarterback where
That's what I was going to.
they could have just left their
Yeah.
linebackers back, and those three were getting enough pressure on the quarterback and they would have been fine.
Yeah, I mean the philosophy of that defense right there is, the front guys, front three, front four, depending on the fronts that they're in or who they bring down, or because I know they play a 3-3-5, is
Mm-hmm.
those guys take up all the box, heat up all the box, and then the linebackers are blitzing all the time in order to kind of, finesse their way, power their way through there in order to get to the quarterback. It's a really, really smart scheme, but where
Yeah.
it gets challenging is that there's so many moving parts that, your eyes on as an offensive line, you're looking everywhere and you're like, is that my guy? Is this my guy? It's confusion.
Yeah.
It's complete madness. Have,
That
have you seen that?
chaos.
Have you seen that guy? I mean, I hate this. It's kind of there's this little kid that, all over social media that I've been seeing that he's like blind. He's a blind
Mm.
football player. And it
Oh,
was like
really?
youth football, but he signed it from football. He took it on the chin, and he was out there playing, but it's kind of It's kind of one of those
Wow.
things is, I mean, that's how I thought the offensive line were. It was hard for Northwestern's front to be able to see anything, keep up
Yeah.
with them, you know?
Yeah.
And so because of that, all it creates is confusion and chaos, and you get out of your technique, and then these guys start, literally pile driving you. And I was scared at one point. I was like, this quarterback's gonna get hurt if he takes hits like this, man. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and well, and the linebackers, Braxton Hill got Big Sky player, the defensive player of the week,
Shout out to
um,
Braxton, man. Oh my
10
gosh, what a
tackles.
performance.
Yeah, Levi Janicaro forced a fumble, blocked a punt. I know that was on special teams, but he's part of that defense as well. Like I
Yeah.
said, O'Connell got a interception. He also, I believe, had his first sack as well. De'Ari Todd
Yeah.
had a sack. He looks a lot faster and meaner as well. And
Yeah,
man,
Governor looked more athletic now than
oh
he did
yeah,
last year too. The
yeah.
dude's a monster, dude. Oh
He
my
he
gosh.
looks he looks so fast for a defensive tackle. That is
Yeah.
nuts. Like that is
I
nuts for him.
I talked to him right before the season, and he was just like, "I'm trying to find the perfect middle ground to be as athletic as I possibly can be in order to keep up that juice more consistently throughout the game." And I was
Okay.
just like, "Man, what a great thing to do." He knows his responsibility. He knows where he needs to be because you could easily be like, you know what, I'm just going to continue to gain weight, gain weight, gain weight, and then just be, yeah, a guy that can plug up the gap. But if the quarterback starts to roll out, I can't keep up with that guy. But
Yeah.
not Gubby, not Governor. The
Yeah.
Governor, he'll
Dang,
be
dude.
there. He'll
Oh
be
yeah,
there,
he'll be the
man.
first one there,
You
man.
know, who I was extremely impressed with. Obviously, you said it right there. Those front guys. I was really impressed with their play. They look
Yeah.
fast, they look physical, and they played throughout the whole game. I'm talking about all four quarters. It doesn't matter who was in. They were
Yep.
they were they were destroying that front. You can definitely tell that those guys were tired. I don't know if a elevation thing, but I honestly just think it's just sheer force of will.
Yep.
They destroyed their will to be at that stadium. And then number two, who really stuck out to me and I was really impressed with, Fauci. What a game he had.
Fouch.
Yeah, Fauci.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. He
I
had a
thought
really
I
good game too.
I thought he did a tremendous job just being everywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
Yep.
Pass breaking up the tackle, the pursuit, everything in between. He was
Yep.
right there. You'd see Robbie coming on the tackle, and then you see Fouch getting up too, because he had already been there as well too.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
Oh my gosh. I mean, impressive performance all the way around.
Well, and I thought, what I saw, Corbin Walker had some good moments.
Yeah, yeah.
Dawson had some good, or Jordan or Jaden Dawson had some good moments as well. It was an all around dominant performance from a defense, and man, it just reminds me of, like, how, like, blood in the water, right? Sharks' blood in the water. That's what it felt like. There's blood in the water. They're just gonna keep on attacking until they get what they want.
Mm-hmm.
And man, they were able to play the twos and the threes as well. You got to see Noose and Cale Edwards, Garrett Houston, which I still am pissed off at because Garrett did an awesome job of right on the goal line where he broke up the running back, and that should have been a safety. I am
Mm-hmm.
like
I thought that was a safety too.
that was a freaking safety. Like,
That was a
oh,
safety.
I was like yelling at the TV. I'm like, that is a safety. You got it. Yeah.
I
So
don't know. I thought it was. Maybe I'm going insane. Maybe I just don't understand football anymore or something, dude. But I could have sworn I was just like, that guy's in right there. That should have been, points on our scoreboard for sure. For
exactly.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, but it all just boils down to the mentality. It's a culture
Yeah.
that Bobby's been able to create. And that's one of the things is I think a lot of times as fans, outside of the realm, and some people that don't necessarily understand football, I mean, they expect, oh, we got some good guys that it's going to be instantaneously to be able to develop a program, you
Mm-hmm.
know, but it takes time.
Yeah.
It takes time. Everything takes time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was on the way back from Bozeman. I just had like a podcast on, and he said this. He says, "Why is Mama's cooking so good?" I was like, "Because she fills it with love, passion, but she takes the time to make
Mm-hmm.
sure that it's a good meal." And obviously, it's a whole different philosophy for obviously for food, but it's the
Yeah.
same philosophy. When you kind of really kind of dumb it down to the core foundation of what it is.
Yeah.
Good things take time. Building programs take time. Building good players take a lot of time, take a lot of effort. And you can see the fruits of that labor kind of coming about. And again, we're getting ahead of ourselves. It's game one. There
Yep.
is a lot of season to be played left. But again, I'm just, I mean, it was a fun game to watch, and I wish I would have been there. I'll be there this
Oh,
weekend, but
dude.
last weekend, the whole
Uh,
time I was kicking myself. I was like, man, I should have stayed. I should have stayed.
oh,
Just didn't have that chance to.
well, I'll be jealous. I'll be sitting on my couch watching. So hopefully I'll be able to get up there soon.
You let me
But
know, brother. Let me know.
oh,
We'll link
I
up.
will. Yes, definitely. But yeah, I think one of the main things is if we can stay healthy, man,
Yeah,
the sky's the limit. And I was glad that we stayed healthy this week. And
yeah.
hopefully we continue that.
That's my
So
big thing, man. That's my
yeah,
big thing. That is my, knock on wood, stay healthy,
yep,
remain competitive, make sure that the bodies kind of keep up with them because the beginning of the season, I mean, right before you start camp is the best that you're going to feel all year.
yeah,
And after that, a lot of it is mental, being able to take all those hits, especially from a good football team, because they're out there hitting and they're hitting hard. They're not taking it easy on each other. And again, I had mentioned this before, practices were the harder part of the week. Practices are so much harder than the games, and there's a purpose and the philosophy behind that, and he
yeah.
does it, and Bobby does it just enough to say, hey, you know what, this is going to make us a better football team. I promise you, you have to trust me on this. And again, you can see that those guys aren't afraid to hit. They're no stranger to pursue. I mean, they're dialed in and they're on a routine of how
Yeah.
it's supposed to go, and there's an expectation. And again, you see that in all phases of the game.
Oh man. Well, you mentioned like the hits when they had Braxton Hill on, and I think you've probably had it. I've had it as well. When you get like a face shield on your forearm, you could tell he got hit somehow, and he had this big old bruise on his forearm. It looked kind of like road rash, man. But yeah, it
It was
was.
not fun, man.
Oh my gosh,
It's
it looked like it was painful.
Oh man, it's not fun at all, man. I
Yeah.
remember one time I was on the goal line, and it was inside zone playing. A running back came in, but he didn't have a hole because it was so plugged up. There was, 14 bodies right there in that small little gap, and he said, you know what? F it. I'm just gonna hit one of these guys and hopefully they take me to the promised land. And I remember it was in between me and the center. I think Cooper Sprunk was playing at the time, and he ran into my elbow. And I swear the rest of the season he just bugged me. He's bugged me. He's bugged me. But it's one of
Oh,
those things is you're just trained to be like, hey, roll out the shoulders. This doesn't matter. We did
yeah.
our job here. We need to do our job.
Yep.
Rain, snow, sleet, doesn't matter. Sunshine. And again, that was another thing that I was worried about. I mean, those guys handled the heat like a champ. Granted,
Oh
yeah, we
man.
had the smoke kind of help us a little bit. There's a little bit kind of that coverage in order to kind of make it just a little bit cooler, but it
Yeah.
was still a freaking hot day.
Yep.
And I mean, it looked like they didn't miss a step.
Well, and I think what the good thing is this weekend, I think it's supposed to be a little bit cooler, right? It's supposed to be in the 80s.
Uh, I think so. I haven't checked it for this week, but I definitely knew that that was one of the hotter games that these guys had played. This weekend, it's supposed to be 80. Yep.
Yeah. Well, and
Perfect football weather.
I think it was one of the hottest games played, if I'm not mistaken. I may have heard wrong, but that's what I thought I had heard, that it was one of the hottest games ever played at Washington Grizz.
Yeah,
So
100%. I mean, and again, they look like they didn't miss a step.
exactly.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was expecting to see a lot of guys going for cramps and stuff like that, but you didn't see that. So shout out to the staff as well, keeping those guys hydrated and everything like that. So, but
Exactly, man. So all around, man, all around, it was a good first game. I'm really impressed with it, and again, this week is going to really be, kind of a little bit more of a showing to see where this football team is, because I
well,
think everybody expected for the game to go that way. You know,
yep.
maybe not a shutout. Like I was totally wrong. I don't know why I said 14. If I said 14, in my brain, the whole weekend, I was just like, these guys are going to score on them. I don't know why I said 14. How disrespectful of me. I'm
Well, I
sorry, you
said
guys.
7, man. I said 7. So,
Yeah, yeah.
but
So, I mean, going into this week, it'll be a little bit more of a testament to see, how strong the defense is, how strong is that offensive line front, and then
yeah.
obviously we're stacked all the way around to really kind of be able to have a good game to be able to come out with another W this weekend.
Well, hey, I got a fan, friend of the podcast, Mike. Shout out to you, Mike. He got us a question because I put it on Twitter for anybody to, if you had questions or thoughts on the
Oh,
game.
sweet. Yeah.
So his question was, after week 1, what do we know now that we about the team that we didn't already know, and what do we still not know? Um, I would say Lucas Johnson. We know that. I would think coming in, I didn't know what we were going to get from him. I know what he had. I didn't know that it was going to be to this capability. I would still say that what we don't know, we don't know. We know how we have a good line. We don't know what they will be at the end of the year. Um, and so, I think also with wide receiver, who's going to make that next step? We had flashes of Flowers, we had flashes of other people, but who's going to make that next step after Mitch?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm wondering. I'm glad that we know that it's going to be probably a 4-man running back group, which that's awesome because I feel like it was so awesome to see Marcus going for a touchdown.
Oh,
Um,
how sweet was that, dude? Oh my gosh.
yeah,
That was so I mean, you can tell, and that's one of the things too, is that for being away from the game of football for what, 2 years at this
yeah,
point?
yep,
A little bit over 2 years.
yep,
I think he did an
yeah,
awesome job coming back
yep,
into it. I
yep,
think it's one of those things is I hate to say this, but I know in the back of your mind, or I would like to assume in the back of his mind, he's thinking he was just like, okay, what is this weekend going to look for me?
yeah,
I want to stay healthy. I want to be extremely competitive, and I want to do right by the team.
yeah,
I'm sure those were thoughts that were kind of going through his head. And so the fact that he did it in that type of fashion, being able to score a touchdown, make some good plays, show some flashes of greatness, I think one, it's going to do wonders to his confidence. And I think he's just going to take off running from here on out. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yep,
And again, and I think going back to kind of Mike's question, I think the quarterback question has been answered. We know we have a dog in Lucas. You
yeah,
know, I think the offensive line, how good can they be? We saw flashes of, okay, you guys are a good unit.
yep,
How great do you want to be? How great can you be? I
yep,
think that's the kind of question to be answered. Another question that was answered this weekend too. Our defense is the most competitive I've ever seen it be. You
yeah,
know, even to last year. I thought last year we were just studs, a freak of nature type of defense, and I think this year's gearing up to be even better.
yeah. Well,
Hmm.
and it's just we have to don't get too hyped up. It's one game.
Yep.
You don't go off a season off of one game. It's a game of 13, 14 games, and we're just on number one. It's a
Yeah.
journey. It's not.
One thing that I'm hopeful for the future is obviously our extra points and our field
Yeah,
goals.
yeah,
We struggled with that a little bit. I think we missed 2 field goals, and
yep,
then also not 2 field goals, 2 extra points, and then 1 field goal. You
yeah,
know, obviously, again, going back to what I said earlier in the podcast, if there's one thing that the Bobby's good at is special teams.
yep,
So I am 100% confident that he's going to be able to kind of sort that out, figure out who those best guys are, put us in the best position to obviously win football games. But that's something that obviously was because that's 5 points off the board right there.
oh yeah,
You know,
and
and
it's
and in true test games, you go deep in December. You're playing NDSU, regardless of where you're at, kind of in the bracket. You're going to
yeah,
want all 5 of those points in order to kind of make sure at the end of the game that you guys win. And that is my big thing. That is my big question.
yep. Well, and it was actually 2 field goals and 1 extra point.
Two
So
field goal,
that's
1 extra point.
yeah,
Then I'm
that's seven.
backwards.
That's 7 points right there.
Then I'm backwards on it. I'm backwards
And
on it. But
and
still, yeah,
and a safety. That's 9 points.
yeah, exactly, man. So again, dude. So I think those are the questions because obviously we'll get some challenges. We'll get a couple tests, but I don't think until the second half or maybe midway through the season, that's when we'll
Yeah,
really start seeing some teams that it's like, okay, how good are we? How good can we be? So that's
yeah,
my big questions moving on forward. But I think all the questions that we talked about last week have been answered.
yeah,
Who's QB1? How are the running backs going to do? Thinking about Marcus being away from football for so long, his kind of transition back to offensive line is a defensive front, and that's one thing that I've noticed that's different than this year compared to last year. I think that defensive front, are relying a lot more on those interior guys
hmm,
as opposed to last year. There was just kind of a feeling that I felt like they relied on those outside guys to be able to give that pressure, obviously, in Joe Babros and Justin and those sort of things. And so those new guys are that at that end position, they're going to rely heavily on those interior guys in order to be able to make it work, you know?
Yeah.
And obviously I saw Jacob again. He got a sack in the game.
Yeah.
How awesome. I've said this multiple times. Yeah, I struggled with him so much. And so I'm finally happy to be like, dude, one game, one sack, you're killing it already. Let's go.
Exactly.
Let's do it again next week. Let's get 2 next week. You know what I mean?
Exactly, man.
Yeah.
Well, hey, let's speak about next week. We've got a new team coming to town, man.
Yeah, we do.
South Dakota Coyotes. I don't think it's Coyotes. I think it's Coyotes. Are coming to town. They should be. They were ranked 26. Let me see if they are actually in the top 25 now. But they were preseason in the top 26. But they are from the Missouri Valley Football Conference,
which is probably our most competitive conference.
Yes, exactly.
To the Big Sky, I think that they're the most competitive conference. It's always a toss-up back and forth. A lot of times in the playoffs, we see a lot of those guys.
Yep.
And obviously for the past few years, they've been dominant and obviously being able to win the national championship, you know, time and time again, with the exception of James Madison winning, what was it, 2 years ago?
Yes. I think it was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
They are not in the top 25 because they got shellacked by Kansas State.
They did.
So they did not.
What was it? 34-0?
34-0.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Little information on South Dakota. They finished last year 21-22 season tied for third with SDSU and Southern Illinois. They then lost to Southern Illinois in the first round of the playoffs, 22-10. Like I said, they were the stats preseason number 26 team. They are not 26 now. They're a little bit back. They lost to Kansas State last week, 34-0. One interesting thing is they probably have the hardest schedule in the FCS.
You think so?
Okay, so they play K-State at Kansas State. They then play number 3 Montana. Okay, then I think they have an easy one, but they play number 1, 2, 3, 5, and 9, and they play K-State.
That's a tough one. That's a tough schedule right there, boys. And I will say this. One thing that to be optimistic about on their side of things and worried about on our side of things is 20 of those 34 points were scored in the first quarter.
Yeah.
You know, getting the jitters out, you know, and then from there, I think the last couple, they scored one in the second, one in the third, and then 0 in the fourth. So it looked like as the game went on, their defense got more comfortable. You know, they got a little bit acclimated to obviously playing in front of 50,000 fans. It's a little bit of a shocker.
Oh,
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
One thing that was kind of cool too, and I didn't know this until I kind of did some research. They've faced an FBS team every year since 2010, except for the COVID year. So they're not going to be afraid coming into Wagriz, knowing that they play and they're expected to play farther out. All these FBS teams, they play North Dakota State. They're not going to be ready for the sound that Wagriz makes. But I totally agree with you, Angel, that they did actually end up answering some of their questions too. And we'll get into some of those questions that they had that they answered. This isn't a bad team.
No, it's not a bad team at all.
No.
Which is why it's going to be the testament to seeing what our offense can really do this upcoming week, especially if they come out playing, you know, pretty aggressive football. Because again, first quarter, first game of the year, you know, playing against a top tier, and I think Kansas State's a pretty good football team. You know, I mean, is there what was that old NDSU coach? Is he still coaching there?
No, Craig Bull is in Wyoming.
Okay. Then 100%. But again, you know, I have respect for the program. I think they play really, really hard football. You know, it just always seems to be just not there as far as being a top tier program at that high level. You know, but I do think that they're a good football program, and the fact that they were able to hold them, you know, 14 through 3 quarters it's something to be okay. We got to keep our eye out for that coming into obviously Wild Grits, especially doing at their home. Because
Yeah.
I could easily see it. Team scores 20 on you in the first. A lot of teams would completely fold out, and that score is going to be 67-0 by the end
Oh
of the
yeah.
game.
Yep.
So being able to say, hey, you know what, we have some pride to have right here. Let's see what we can do with it.
Yep.
It's one of those things. Is like, okay, we got a battle ahead of us this upcoming week. Let's see
Yep.
what we can really do on offense. Let's see who kind of steps up. Obviously, Mitch being the star of the game on the receiver corps. Junior Bergen kind of coming into that round too of just being just absolutely dominating. Let's see if they can do that next year and maybe get Fonts in a little bit. Maybe get Malik in a little
100%.
bit.
Yep.
So they got the talent on our side to be able to do it. But it's not going to be a pushover game by any means. And that's
No,
where you go back to what you said at the beginning. This is probably the toughest game on the first, half of the season that we're probably going to be able to see and play.
exactly. Well, let's kind of go over some of the guys that they have. Just to shout out, they've got a quarterback that has experience. This is his third year there. He's a sophomore.
Mm-hmm.
His name's Carson Camp. He needs 400 passing yards to enter the South Dakota or the University of South Dakota top 10 on the passing list.
Yeah.
The one thing that is kind of deceiving is all of last year, he did not throw over 30 passes until the playoff round, and he threw 31 in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they were kind of opening the playbook to him slowly. Last week, he threw 34. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
thinking that they're going to be throwing a little bit more. He went for, last year, 65% completion, a little over 2,200 yards, 17 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. He didn't do well last game. He missed some open receivers and some way open guys, and I think that he felt the pressure. He felt the
Mm-hmm.
pressure of that defense, and so they've got some guys that are really good. Wide receiver, they have a great wide receiver coming back, Carter Bell. He's also a return specialist for them. One interesting fact of South Dakota, they are one of the 10 schools that have had a kick return and a punt return last year for a touchdown. I think Montana was probably one of the 10 as well. So they do have some experience on kick return and punt return with Carter Bell and Wesley. I'm going to say his last name, Ilador. And so their returning leader is Carter Bell on the wide receiver side. They do have a Montana State transfer, Jack Martins, who did pretty well last game as well. But they've got some good wide receivers. Carter Bell is the second team all Missouri Valley preseason. But the one thing that they kind of answered is their running back situation. In the spring, they lost their leading rusher to, I believe, an ACL tear in Nate Thomas.
Yeah.
He was replaced by Shamari Lawrence, who had gotten injured the previous year. He did really well against K-State. He had 14 rushes for 84 yards. So I think that they've kind of found a guy there that can come back from that injury and kind of take over for that running back position.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So again, just reiterating what I just said kind of a little bit earlier, they're not a pushover team by any means.
No.
Just like anything else, winning is extremely hard.
No.
And so it's just going to be another testament. But again, I wholeheartedly believe that our atmosphere is far and away way better and way different than even with a fan base of $50,000 over at Kansas State.
Yeah.
I do think that the atmosphere is electric, and obviously them having a player from Montana State, he knows what it's going to be. And
Yep.
that he's talking to those players right now saying, hey, we got to step it up because
Yep.
everybody's a different football team whenever they travel to Missoula, Montana, and everybody knows that. Nobody argues with that.
Yep.
They do things differently. They try harder. It's just one of those games that they just creates that type of height in their minds. And so, again, I think we're so accustomed and so comfortable being, hey, it doesn't matter. We can go outside on the dirt right now. We'll still beat your ass. It's going to be one of those things is we need to come in with a mentality, and be able to say, hey, this is just in the game. We're going to dominate. And that's what they need to be looking to do this upcoming week.
Well, and it'll be interesting too with our defensive line. South Dakota brings 4 of their 5 starters back, excuse me, on their offensive line. So
Mm-hmm.
it is a offensive line that has some experience. They do have a preseason All-American in their left tackle, Alex Jensen. They are the only team other than North Dakota State who has ran it more than everybody in their conference. NDSU
Mm.
runs the ball a lot. South Dakota last year was a running team. I don't expect them to be a running team this year. I think they're going to probably try to even it out with opening up the playbook. But their offense is going to have to rely on their offensive line and those offensive people that they have on their offense. Their
Mm-hmm.
defense, just to go shortly, guys, just to go into their defense, they've got 8 projected starters that have experience. Their defense has improved over the last 3 or 4 years. They were atrocious 5 years ago, but they have some experience on the defensive line, but it's pretty young. And so I think that that's going to be kind of bode well for us with kind of working out our offensive line. They have a pretty good core of linebackers. Their first team all conference linebacker, Brock Moggensen, he had 9 tackles at K State. They also have a transfer from Akron, a linebacker, Michael Scott. He had 7 tackles.
Michael Scott, huh? I saw that
Michael
earlier on the
Scott,
depth chart. Oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
7 tackles, and he had 2 sacks. He played 27 games at Akron. They've got a kind of a pretty good safeties and cornerbacks where they've had some experience. So it's not going to be a North Dakota State. We're not expecting North Dakota State, but they do play North Dakota State. They do play Northern Iowa. They do play South Dakota State. They're going to be ready for a game. They've got some guys that, hey, if we're not ready, we're gonna be in a dogfight. But I don't think that this is going to be a close game. It might be close for maybe a quarter or two. I don't think it's going to be that close.
Yeah.
But who knows? Who knows what will happen? Do we have the better
And then
team?
also too, one advantage that they have, I mean, again, it's unfortunate that obviously Northwestern State has some coaching challenges, having to
Yeah.
move some people around.
Yep.
Obviously, this is a different story.
Yep.
Consistent coaches that have been there for a little bit of while, those sort of things are adjusted, they're acclimated, they know what those expectations are. And
Yep.
so again, that's gonna be an advantage to them that a lot of people don't think about. Coming from last week to this week, which again, I don't foresee it being an absolute nail biter to the last minute on the 1 yard line. But at the
Yeah.
same time, it's not going to be the same kind of outcome as it was last week, simply
Yeah.
because they have a lot more systems in place. They have some experience all over the board. They're getting a little bit experimental, kind of maybe balancing things out on their run game to their pass game, and
Yep.
see what kind of things kind of throw them off. One thing, obviously, you put those offensive linemen against our front 3, our front 4, plus our backers. I'm
Yep.
taking our backers 10 out of 10 times. I don't care what you say. I've seen the most disciplined players to be around get, mind boggled just because of the speed that we bring to the table and the
Yep.
confusion that we do on our defensive scheme, which is obviously plays out to our advantage. One thing that I am kind of thinking about is, I think we do a really good job of obviously bringing the heat to be able to have that pressure. I'm interested to see teams kind of go and attack our middle or kind of the mid game.
Mm-hmm.
I think our deep coverage is pretty locked down. I think our short game's pretty locked down. Our run game's pretty locked down defensive wise. I'm interested to see if teams try to expose, mid length passes. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? The
Yep.
middle of the field. See if they can take advantage of that a little bit and how Montana's going to respond. Simply because I see some gap there.
Well,
But
and that's what I kind of saw too, and I didn't get to it. That last year that was our kryptonite, right? And you kind of saw that a little bit with Southeastern Louisiana. Wow, Northwestern State is they were able to hit the middle. How are they going to stop that from happening?
yeah, if they if
Meet the
if
middle.
they got anything, obviously they only got a few things off
Yep.
Obviously, us being able to adjust to honestly, a team that we really didn't have a whole lot of film on.
Yeah.
We didn't really know what to
Yep.
expect on their offensive side of things as far as the defensive game plan. We did an awesome job,
Oh
but
yeah.
I'm just kind of interested to see, as the kind of the rest of the year kind of progresses, what their attack plan, what they plan on doing in order to kind of make sure that, hey, you know what, we bring so much pressure that it works out in our favor,
Yep.
that we leave some of those gaps in the middle open, or if we adjust a little bit, obviously game plan to game plan, team to team. And
Yeah.
so I'm interested to see if they try to test that a little bit,
Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting too. Like you said, you mentioned it. Last game, their coaching staff, we knew who their coach was, but we didn't have a lot of film on them. Bobby had said they already pre-gamed for this team way back in the spring. They already
Mm-hmm.
had breakdowns of this team, so it's not like they don't know what's going to happen. So this team,
Mm-hmm.
they already have a schedule of what they're going to do. They already know what they're going to want to do. So it's going to be a little bit different of a game. Probably a little bit less scoring, just because I think the competition is going to be a little bit raised here. So I'm excited to get your prediction. Are you ready to get prediction wise?
I want to hear yours first. I want to hear yours first.
Okay, so I got to get to mine.
Because I think I went first last week. You go first this week.
Okay, so I was nulling it around. I'm gonna say, oh, I keep on going back and forth. I'm gonna say 36-14.
Oh my gosh. I was gonna say 38-14.
Oh, gee.
You know what? I messed up last week. Last week I did too many points. I did 14 last week. That was a mistake. I'm going 3 points. I'm going 38-3.
38-3.
And this is a challenge to our offense, our defense, but also kind of a little bit of knack on theirs. I don't think that they're going to be able to handle our defensive pressure, and I think if anything, they get lucky with. I mean, obviously, we were able to keep them. I mean, Northwestern State out of the 50 for majority of the game.
Yeah.
Before being able to cross late in the game. Other
Yep.
than that, I think it's even the same story. It's going to be they're going to struggle. They're going to struggle a lot of 4-and-outs, maybe a play. Excuse me, maybe a play here and there, but ultimately, I don't see them kind of hitting the home. Especially after their performance last week. I think our defense is just as top tier as even like a Kansas State. I mean, they can compete with the best of them. So I
Exactly.
truly believe that I can see that happening. If anything, they get lucky with the 3-pointer. So I'm rooting for you for our defensive guys, man. That's the challenge for
Exactly.
you guys. We better come out there and whoop on these boys. And again,
Exactly.
big challenge on our side. O-line has a big week, a really, really big week. They're
Yep.
sitting a little bit more of a talented, a little bit more of a structured, a little bit more of a disciplined team this week, and we're going to see, again how much they can raise the cap of being a good offensive line because they're good already. Let's see if
Yeah.
they can be great. Let's see if
Well,
they can take it to the next level.
it's going to be interesting too because if you listen to Riley Corcoran's podcast, they had their radio guy on, and he mentioned that their quarterback last year got hurt, kind of banged up, but he kind of played through it, and kind of was a little shaky with getting hit.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to say that maybe he's that way now. You kind of grow through things, but if he is still that way, he's going to get hit. He's
So
going to get hit.
so he's relying on those offensive guys, and I'm telling you right now,
Yeah.
I'll take Governor, I'll take Eli, I'll take
Yep.
Todd,
Yep.
it doesn't matter. I'll take those guys any day to put a whooping on those guys, and so I truly, truly believe it's going to be a long day for them too, and they're not going to know what hit them.
Because the more I talk, the more I want to be like, dude, I want to change my score, but I'm not. I'm locked in.
You
I'm
said
locked
what'd you
in.
say?
I said
36.
36-14. I already wrote
Where'd
it
you
down.
get 36 from? You
36.
either going to go for you either going to get to go for 2 on something?
I don't know. I just think they've got to be at least a three touchdown favorite, right?
Yeah.
At least. I think we might get a safety. Do we miss some PATs? I don't know. Do we get
Because
some field
I'm
goals?
going five teddies in a field goal. That's what I'm shooting for.
Okay.
That's why I'm coming up with 38. And
Okay.
3, obviously, just because I don't expect them to get any more. But if you're thinking that we at one point in time, because we did do it this past weekend, that we might go for an
For
extra,
two.
for
Yep.
go for 2, I could
Yep.
totally see that happening
Yep.
simply because we did it last week. So who knows? Maybe
Exactly.
they want to practice it a little bit.
Yep. Well, and I don't know. It just stuck out to me. I knew we're probably, I don't even know what we're a favorite on or what the line is, but
I don't know if I'm
yeah,
allowed to say this, man, but I mean, I'm putting all my money on Montana. Let's just say this.
exactly. Hey, did you look up your Big Sky predictions? Did you get that? You
Big Sky
said you were gonna,
predictions.
yeah, you said you were gonna try to look up your predictions. Did you get
You
that?
know what, man? I'm a POS. I'm sorry. I forgot to do it, dude. Oh,
It's okay. It's all right, man. It's all right.
oh
No,
gosh. Oh,
it's
we'll
all
get it
right.
to you. We'll get it to you. We'll get it to
No,
you,
no,
man.
it's all
I'm
right.
sorry.
It's all right, man.
I
You had a
will.
huge weekend, man. You had a
I
busy
was. I
weekend.
was busy. I was busy, man. But I apologize. No excuse. I'm sorry,
No,
guys. I let you guys down.
no. Well, you know what? The graphic behind us is created by Angel. So you haven't really seen all of it. I would totally check it out tomorrow. As we're recording this, we'll have this on Wednesday for you. But remember to rate, review, and subscribe, guys. We are a part of the FCS Fans Nation YouTube network. So
Yeah.
totally, you can see
And
these
one thing that I
beautiful
want to say about those
mugs.
guys, I mean, what a bunch of good guys too.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of those communities that you always get a little bit kind of nervous joining simply because they're I mean, they're super fans. You
Oh
know,
yeah. Oh yeah.
they're super just like us. Like, you know, they study these games, they're passionate about these games. Our teams are playing their teams, vice
Yep.
versa, man. But all in all, and through, man, I mean, it's a great channel to be a part of. Gives us an opportunity to share with some people that might not normally listen, and vice versa. Check
Yep.
out the page. You know, listen
Yeah.
to some of their podcasts. They've got some talented people like way better than us that actually, you know, know what they're talking about. And so because of that, man, I mean, again, just a great group to be a part of. And so we're super grateful for the opportunity. So FCS Fans Nation on YouTube, you can
Yep.
find them on Twitter too. They got
Yep.
tons and tons of pages, you know, team specific that, and they give some really good insight. So give them a shout out, give them a follow, and then also again, rate us, give us a review, you know,
Exactly, man.
subscribe to us, and you know, let us know what you guys want to talk about. If we missed something, we appreciate these questions. And again, it's a podcast for the people, and that's all that really matters here.
For the people.
Uh-huh.
Like always, guys. Yeah, exactly what Angel said. Get a hold of us and cheer hard for your Grizzlies this weekend against the Coyotes. And
Mm-hmm.
we will see you again next week, as always.
Mm-hmm.
Go
And go
Grizz.
Grizz. Fight
Oh.
on, baby. You got me this weekend. I was trying to